The desert sun bled through the thin glass of the operations room, painting everything gold and harsh. Maps lined the walls, dotted with red markers, radio chatter humming low like a warning under everyone's breath. But inside, it wasn't the heat that made the air tight. It was her presence. Lieutenant Commander Rhea Cade stood at the head of the table, sleeves rolled, forearms scarred, eyes like still water. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Everyone in that room knew who she was. The first woman to pass Bud S without a single deferment, a SEAL who'd pulled her unit out of a collapsing compound under enemy fire 3 years ago. Her legend preceded her, but so did the whispers. Good soldier, bad publicity risk, one colonel had said once. She's proof the Navy's gone soft, another muttered. Today, those whispers had a name. Major Trent Harlan, fresh from headquarters, sharp uniform, polished boots, and the kind of arrogance that comes with too many medals earned behind desks. He'd been sent to oversee her mission, though everyone knew what that really meant, to keep an eye on her. He leaned back in his chair now, fingers tapping his holster as she briefed the plan. Her tone was steady, controlled. Insertion at 200, silent route through Sector Delta. No night vision markers, they're compromised. We'll use IR-only comms synchronized by... Harlan cut in, voice dripping condescension. You mean you'll be leading them through the dark with your instincts again, Commander? The room went quiet. Rhea didn't look at him. She just kept marking coordinates on the map. With or without approval, sir, I plan to bring my team home alive. That got him. His jaw tightened. You forget your place, Commander. I don't take orders from field experiments. A few SEALs shifted uncomfortably. They weren't used to hearing their commander talked to like that. Not by an outsider. Not by someone who hadn't earned their respect in blood and sand. Rhea finally looked up. Calm. Detached. Sir, with respect. I don't give orders. I make results. Someone stifled a grin, Harlan noticed. His ears went red. The rest of the briefing crawled by. Every time she spoke, he found a way to interrupt. Question her data, mock her tactics, twist her words into something insubordinate. But Rhea never rose to it. She'd learned long ago that control wasn't about silence. It was about focus. By the time the meeting ended, the team had seen enough. Their respect for her was solidified, and Harlan's authority, paper thin. Outside, as the base lights flickered on against the dusk, Petty Officer Lane jogged up beside her. Ma'am, he said quietly, you want us to log a report? The way he talked to you, Rhea shook her head. No, he's not the enemy. She adjusted her gear, eyes scanning the horizon. But he's about to learn what happens when you treat your own like one. Behind her, the night wind howled through the hangar doors, carrying sand and silence. Inside, Major Harlan watched her walk away, a figure framed by dust and fading light, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not anger, not defiance. Something closer to unease. Because deep down, he knew this wasn't going to end with words. By dawn, the base was already alive. The grind of generators, the bark of orders, the metallic click of rifles being inspected. Heat shimmered off the sand like waves. The mission clock was ticking and everyone felt it. Everyone except Rhea. Lieutenant Commander Rhea Cade moved through the prep bay with her usual precision, a calm rhythm in chaos. She checked gear, ammo, medkits, and then the rifles one by one. Her men trusted her eyes more than any inspection checklist. To them, she wasn't just a SEAL. She was the anchor. Major Trent Harlan watched her from across the hangar, his expression unreadable. His spotless uniform looked out of place among the dust and oil-stained camouflage. He didn't like her command style. Too informal, too intuitive, too effective. Commander Cade, he called out, voice sharp. She didn't look up. Yes, sir. Your report says your unit operates without verbal confirmation during infiltration. That violates direct comms protocol. Rhea finished securing her rifle before answering. Not a violation. A modification. Voice comms carry 2 clicks of lag over encrypted channels. That's enough to get a man spotted. My team uses hand signal confirmations, like faster, silent, cleaner. Harlan's jaw flexed. And if something goes wrong, then they improvise. Improvisation isn't strategy, Commander. Rhea turned her head slowly, meeting his eyes for the first time that morning. It is when you've buried the ones who didn't. The silence between them stretched tight. The nearby soldiers pretended to be busy, but everyone was listening. Harlan stepped closer, lowering his voice. You've been running things your own way for too long. Out here I'm command. You follow my word. Rhea didn't argue. She just stared at him, calm, unshaken. Then I hope your word can dodge bullets, she said quietly. Because mine has to. For a second it looked like he might snap again. But instead, he turned on his heel and walked off, muttering orders at an aide who scrambled to keep up. That night, the storm rolled in early, a curtain of dust and wind sweeping over the compound. Visibility dropped. Radios crackled with static. Rhea gathered her team in the armory, going over the infiltration routes again. Then, mid-briefing, Harlan entered. Helmet tucked under his arm, pistol on his thigh, frustration still simmering behind his eyes. Mission parameters have changed, he announced. Command wants an earlier drop. We move at 0100, Rhea frowned. We're not ready. Visibility's near zero and the winds. I gave an order, Commander. With respect, that order's suicide. He took a step closer, voice rising. You don't tell me what's suicide, Cade. You just follow the damn order. Her men shifted uneasily. They'd seen combat tension before, no, but this was something different. This was personal. Rhea leaned over the map table, tapping the coordinates. These aren't numbers, sir. They're lives. You move at 100, you'll lose 3 men before sunrise. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then Harlan slammed his helmet onto the table, the echo cutting through the storm outside. You forget who you're talking to. Rhea straightened, slow and deliberate. No, sir, she said softly. I'm remembering exactly who I am. The two locked eyes. Lightning flashing through the narrow window between them. Nature mirroring command tension. And in that moment, every SEAL in the room felt it. This wasn't just a clash of authority anymore. It was the calm before a detonation. And everyone knew who'd still be standing when the dust settled. By midnight, the storm had passed but the tension hadn't. The wind left the compound coated in fine dust, the kind that sticks to skin and memory. Inside the ops room, the air buzzed with static and irritation. Major Harlan stood near the operations table, glaring at a flickering screen. His plan was unraveling. The new route he'd ordered was blocked by shifting dunes, the drone recon useless in the sand haze. Every officer in the room knew it, but no one dared say it. No one but her. Lieutenant Commander Rhea Cade stepped in quietly, helmet under her arm, face streaked with dirt and calm focus. Sir, she said, we're wasting time and risking men. The northern pass is unstable. Let us wait until dawn. Harlan didn't look up, denied. Then at least let my team go first. We'll clear the route. You'll do what I tell you. His voice cracked like a whip across the table. Rhea didn't react, but her team, standing behind her, exchanged silent glances. They'd seen her endure worse, but something in her stance tonight was different. Coiled. Restrained, sir, she said, keeping her tone level. I understand your concern for command integrity. But Harlan slammed his fist on the map table. Don't lecture me about integrity, Commander. I know exactly what kind of soldier you are. The words hung heavy. He took a step closer, his voice dropping to a venomous growl. You think you earned this rank? No, you're a headline. A statement piece for the Pentagon. A walking recruitment ad in combat boots. No one moved. The hum of the lights filled the silence. Rhea looked him dead in the eyes. Her voice was soft, steady. Say what you need to, sir. Just don't mistake this uniform for weakness. Harlan's pride snapped. He reached for his sidearm. Fast, but not fast enough. In less than a heartbeat. Rhea had already read his motion, the shift of his shoulder, the twitch of his hand, the instinct of 1,000, training hours kicking in. The pistol cleared the holster. He leveled it at her chest. Every soldier in the room froze. No one dared speak. The metallic click of the safety being released echoed like thunder. Rhea didn't flinch, didn't blink. Her voice cut through the air like glass. You really want to do that, Major? Her team tensed, ready to move, but she raised a single hand. A silent order. Stand down. The storm outside howled again, wind rattling the metal shutters. The world shrank to a single point. The barrel aimed at her heart. Harlan's voice shook with rage. You're finished, Commander. You think you can embarrass me in front of my men? She took a step forward. One step. Calm. Controlled. The gun wavered. I don't need to embarrass you, sir, she said, her eyes unblinking. You're doing that on your own. For a flicker of a second, something broke behind his eyes. Hesitation, doubt, fear. And that was all she needed. Before the next breath, Rhea moved. Her arm shot out, faster than the pistol could track. A twist, a shift, and a crunch. The weapon was gone. In the blink of an eye, the gun was in her hand, pressed gently against Harlan's chest, reversed finger nowhere near the trigger. The move was effortless. Surgical, not an act of violence, but control. Gasps rippled through the room. No one said a word. Rhea leaned in close, her voice barely above a whisper. Rule 1, Major, she said. Never point a weapon at a SEAL, especially not one who's still giving you a chance to walk away. She stepped back and set the pistol on the table, calmly, like setting down a cup of coffee. Meeting's over, she said, and she walked out into the storm as every man in that room stood frozen, faces pale, hearts pounding. That was the night the base learned what command really meant. For a long moment after she walked out, no one spoke. The hum of the generators filled the silence, the only sound in a room that had just witnessed something few would ever forget. Major Harlan stood frozen beside the table, one hand still tingling from the disarm, his pride shredded in front of every soldier under his supposed command. His chest rose and fell like a man surfacing from deep water. The weight of what he'd done and what she hadn't. I'll hit him all at once, Lieutenant Commander Rhea Cade was halfway across the compound before anyone dared follow. The storm outside had calmed into a soft drizzle, rare, cold desert rain tapping against the metal roofs. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. Her team would clean up the mess, file nothing, speak of less. That's how SEALs operated. Behind her, the ops room door creaked open. Petty Officer Lane stepped out, eyes wide. Ma'am, are you okay? Rhea turned, rain dripping from the brim of her cap. I'm fine, she said simply. Lane hesitated, lowering his voice. He aimed a weapon at you. You should report it. She shook her head. I won't. But ma'am, Rhea's gaze lifted toward the storm horizon. You start filing papers, you feed egos, not discipline. He'll remember this lesson better than any tribunal could teach. Lane swallowed hard, nodding slowly. He understood. The SEAL code wasn't written in ink. It was etched in action. Back inside, Harlan still hadn't moved. The pistol sat on the table in front of him like an accusation. Around him, officers kept their distance, pretending to organize maps, pretending not to have seen what they'd seen. Finally, one of them, Captain Morris, cleared his throat. Sir, permission to speak freely? Harlan blinked, still in shock. Granted. Morris stepped closer. You just aimed a loaded sidearm at one of the Navy's top SEALs, sir. She could have... I know what she could have done, Harlan snapped. Then softer. She didn't. He sat down, the metal chair groaning beneath him. For the first time, his hands trembled. Not from fear of her, but from the sudden, crushing realization of how wrong he'd been. He'd expected defiance. Instead, she'd shown restraint. Precision so refined it bordered on mercy. He looked around the room, seeing the unease in the faces of the men he was supposed to lead. And in that moment, it hit him. She'd done more to uphold discipline by not fighting back than he'd done in years of command. Hours later, the rain stopped. The base fell into its usual rhythm. Guards on patrol, engines rumbling, the night calm again. Rhea sat alone under the overhang of the armory, cleaning her rifle, slow and methodical. She didn't look up when Harlan approached. Commander, he said quietly. She paused mid-clean, then set the cloth down. Sir. He hesitated, every word dragging against his pride. About earlier. I lost control, Rhea didn't reply. She let the silence stretch, the kind that forces truth out of men. Harlan exhaled. I was wrong about you. Her eyes lifted, calm but not unkind. You weren't wrong, Major, you just didn't look far enough. He frowned slightly. Meaning? She snapped the bolt shut on her rifle, the click crisp and final. Meaning respect isn't demanded by rank, she said. It's earned by restraint. Harlan looked at her, really looked, and for the first time saw not the female SEAL or the poster soldier, but a warrior carved from control and silence. He nodded once, eyes low. Understood, she gave a faint smile. Then lesson learned. As he turned to leave, she added quietly, And Major, if you ever draw a weapon on one of your own again, you won't get a second lesson." He froze mid-step, then nodded again, this time slower, deeper. When he walked away, the rain had stopped, but the message hung heavy in the air, because in a world built on power and pride, Rhea Cade had just reminded everyone of something far deadlier: discipline. By sunrise, word had already spread. No one announced it. They didn't have to. On military bases, stories travel faster than radio waves, and this one had the charge of a live round. Major Harlan drew on a seal. Rhea Cade disarmed him without firing a shot. By the time the first chopper blades sliced through the dawn air, everyone had heard a version of the story, some exaggerated, some reverent, none inaccurate about the outcome. Rhea didn't entertain any of it. She was back at work before breakfast, overseeing supply checks, reviewing mission data, pretending the night before hadn't happened. She'd learned long ago that silence carried more authority than confrontation, but command didn't stay silent. By 0900, the base received a direct inquiry from Naval Oversight. A formal incident report had to be filed. Weapons drawn in base operations and even in restraint weren't ignored. Harlan filed his report first. He didn't lie. He didn't have to. In his statement, he wrote, "I acted out of anger and unprofessional pride." Commander Cade responded with restraint that prevented unnecessary escalation and potential injury. Her actions were disciplined, controlled, and justified under Navy Code 14.3. "I accept full responsibility for my breach of conduct." It was short, clean, and humble, 3 things no one expected from him. Later that afternoon, Rhea was summoned to command Tent Alpha. She stood at attention before Rear Admiral Costin, an old-school officer who'd trained legends and buried more soldiers than he cared to count. "I've read both reports," he said, flipping a folder closed. His voice was gravel and gravity. "You could have broken him. You didn't." Rhea stayed silent. He eyed her for a long moment. "You're aware most soldiers in your position would have pressed charges?" "Yes, sir. Why didn't you?" Her answer came steady. "Because this wasn't about punishment. It was about principle." Costin leaned back, studying her face. "You think he learned it?" "If he didn't, sir," she said quietly, "he won't be around long enough to forget it." The Admiral let out a single breath that might have been a laugh, or respect disguised as fatigue. "Dismissed, Commander." "And Cade?" "Yes, sir." He gave her a rare nod. "Don't ever change the way you lead. We need more like you. Fewer who just follow the noise." Outside, the sky was clearing again, wide and brutal and beautiful. Rhea stood for a long while, watching a convoy roll out toward the desert horizon. Harlan approached from behind, moving slower this time, humility heavy in his steps. His posture was different, no longer rigid with ego but grounded with understanding. "Commander," he began, almost hesitant. "I received transfer orders. HQ wants me stateside until further review." Rhea nodded. "You'll land on your feet." He looked at her, the weight of his regret obvious. "You didn't have to protect me." She met his eyes, tone calm but final. "I didn't protect you, Major. I protected the uniform." That shut him down. He gave a faint, respectful nod. "For what it's worth," he said. "I'll never forget that night, or what it showed me." Rhea gave a small half-smile. "Then it was worth it." He saluted her, crisp, precise, this time out of genuine respect. She returned it without hesitation. As he walked away toward the transport bay, Lane appeared beside her, watching him go. "Think he'll come back, ma'am?" Rhea slid her sunglasses on, voice flat but knowing. "Maybe, but if he does, he won't make the same mistake twice." Lane smirked. "Because of the rule?" She glanced at him. "Because of the lesson." The day rolled on, the hum of choppers fading into the distance. But on that base, something fundamental had shifted. No one spoke her name loudly. They didn't have to. Every soldier who'd been there knew exactly why you never point a weapon at a SEAL, especially her. Weeks passed. The desert shifted from violent storms to blistering calm, and the base moved on, at least officially. But legends have a way of echoing long after the dust settles. For Lieutenant Commander Rhea Cade, life returned to its familiar rhythm of quiet excellence. Missions came and went. Raids, extractions, recon ops, all executed with surgical precision. Her team followed her like gravity itself, steady and sure. No one mentioned Major Harlan anymore, but his shadow lingered. Not in shame, but as a story retold in whispers. A reminder. It was late evening when Command dispatched Ria's team for a high-risk extraction, deep into enemy terrain, zero air support, minimal intel. A mission with odds that didn't forgive mistakes. Inside the transport, the team sat silent, checking gear one last time. Lane looked across the cabin. "Ma'am," he said, voice low. "This feels like one of those impossible runs." Ria smirked faintly. "Good. Means we're in the right place." The helicopter roared through the darkness, slicing across the dunes like a ghost. No chatter. No fear, just focus. They landed under cover of night, moved like shadows through enemy lines, and extracted the hostage, a captured intel operative, with such precision that not a single enemy fired a shot before they were gone. When Command reviewed the footage later, the Admiral simply said, "She doesn't lead with words. She leads with calm." The team returned before dawn, exhausted, dirty, and victorious. Ria handed her rifle to the quartermaster, stripped off her gloves, and made her way to the rec tent. Inside, a cluster of new recruits huddled over mugs of coffee, talking in hushed tones. "Yeah, they say she took a gun from a major, didn't even blink. No way that's real. I heard she snapped his wrist clean." "Shut up, idiot." "She doesn't need to." Ria paused in the doorway, a faint smile tugging at her lips. She didn't interrupt. She didn't need to. Lane noticed her, gave a tiny nod of acknowledgement. A silent, "They're talking about you again." "Boss." She poured herself a cup of coffee, sat down at the edge of the table, and finally spoke. "Stories grow legs around here," she said casually. "Don't believe everything you hear." The recruits turned, startled, realizing who she was. One of them, barely 19, stammered, "Ma'am." "Did it really happen?" Ria's gaze softened, the hint of a smile behind her calm eyes. "What matters," she said, "is not what happened, but what you learn from it." They leaned in. Hanging on her words, she continued, voice even and quiet. "Respect is more powerful than rank. Control is deadlier than fear. You forget either, and the battlefield will remind you." The room was still. Every word landed like a bullet finding its mark. Then she stood, drained the last of her coffee, and added, almost as an afterthought, "Oh, and if someone ever points a weapon at you." She paused, letting the silence sharpen. Make sure they never forget the mistake. Months later, her story became unofficial curriculum, passed between instructors at SEAL training, told by veterans as a cautionary tale. They called it the lesson of Ria Cade. No one spoke about her like a myth or a headline anymore. They spoke of her the way warriors speak of storms, something that can't be controlled, only respected. Somewhere stateside, Major Harlan received his reinstatement notice. Attached was a note, short, unsigned, but unmistakably hers. "Still leading. Still calm. Stay sharp, RK." He smiled quietly. Lesson remembered. One evening, long after sunset, Ria stood alone on the firing range. The wind was soft, the world quiet. She steadied her rifle, took a slow breath, and fired, the shot echoing across the desert, sharp and clean. Lane's voice came from behind her. "Still training, ma'am?" She lowered her weapon, eyes on the horizon. "Always," she said, "because calm isn't something you find. It's something you keep." And as the sound faded into the stillness, one truth remained. No one, not anymore, ever dared to point a weapon at a SEAL, especially her.